Perfect. I was just waiting for my video to start, but that's okay. So welcome. My name is Yadiksha, and I'll be talking about an introduction to stress rescue today. Just a little bit about me. Okay, so I normally like to answer these questions like this. Who am I? So I've already said I am Yadiksha, and I'll be talking to you about stress intro today. What am I? So I am a guide, teacher, and healer within the Modern Mystery School. I have been doing this for about 7 years now, and before that, I was doing personal growth and development on myself. So it's been over 10 to 12 years that I have been working on myself. Where do I come from? So I come from South Africa, and right now I am based in the UK. Where am I going? I love these questions because if we ask these questions every day, it just helps us bring us into so much of balance. So where am I going? I am going to a place where I would love to serve each and every one of you in helping you to overcome your stress. What is my life purpose? So my life purpose is to actually connect people with their hearts and help them awaken so that they can realize their full potential and who they are in their lives. Where do my teachings come from? So the tools and techniques that I use come from the Modern Mystery School. And these tools and techniques are thousands and thousands of years old. And these techniques are proven to progress humanity. So we're at a stage where we can all sense and feel and know that we need to progress. Because if we stay stuck, then life is just going to bring about the same patterns, the same feelings and thoughts, and we're really not going to move from one place to the other and achieve our goals. So I will be talking more about the Modern Mystery School a little later. Now, an introduction to stress rescue. This is a huge and a varied topic, but what you will be getting from this talk is the awareness of your stresses. Now, why do we need to be aware of our stresses? Because if we're not aware of them, then how do we know what we need to change in our lives? And if we're not aware of what's causing the stress, then we're just going to go through a monotonous life in that cycle. And there would be a lack of growth and opportunity and the ability to simply just live out of joy. So the next thing you will get from this talk is identifying your stresses. This is really important because we would break it down into which aspect of your life is the stress really affecting you. So another thing that you can get from this talk is taking action to eliminate and avoid stresses. Because if we are aware and we can identify our stresses, then the question that one would ask is, so what am I going to do about it? So taking action to eliminate and avoid stresses is something that you will be able to make a choice about and take action from that, because we don't realize the percentage of the impact that stress has in our lives and the ability that it takes for us to change things. So I will be sharing a little bit more about the tools and techniques that you can use and that it will work for you, because the whole point is to once we are aware and we identify the stress, then we want to do something about it. So these tools and techniques are going to help you to have that awareness, and then to be able to do something about it so that you don't bring this back into your life. So my next point I bring about is the awareness. What produces a state of stress? Now, the picture below looks really busy, right? And we can just about Google on the internet, what produces a state of stress. So I'm going to cover that just a little so we know where stress comes from in terms of how it is made up in the body. So stress is an instinctive reaction. It is a complex set of physiological responses to a perceived threat, which is to life and limb. And in turn, it is the stress response that is called the fight or flight. So this comes from the instinctive centers in the brain, and this is one of the oldest portions of our brain. Now, one would say, we don't really connect to this because obviously this is happening inside in a physiological way as well as the response. But the thing is, our brain cannot perceive between us running for our lives, running away from a lion that wants to eat us, or simply, just to put it into words, having to face our boss the next day. So either way, our brain is going to release the same amount of stress hormone. And what happens, it is designed to make us run for our lives or to fight for our lives. And with that, we have a lot of stress hormone within the body. So I've heard a lot of consultants, because I come from a medical background, I've heard a lot of consultants say that stress is the silent killer. Now, my medical background is working in the cardiac department. And I come across the stress response every day, because if we don't really address, or if we're not aware of what produces a state of stress, then you would likely be a patient in the cardiac ward. So anything like palpitations, that high heart rate, a high blood pressure, all of those things can bring you to the doctor. And the reason why we want to know about the stress hormone and use the tools and techniques is because we want to be able to avoid that. And guess what? The beautiful thing is we can avoid it if we use the tools and techniques within this class, and obviously after this class, then you would be able to avoid some of that stress hormone that is being released from the brain. So coming back to the picture, some of us may have a very busy life, and most of the time we say we don't have the time. But guess what? These tools and techniques can take you anything between 5 to 7 minutes, and you would feel a difference. So the key is to just making that 5 to 7 minutes and being aware, when you are feeling stressed, to be able to use a simple technique like the breathing technique that I have offered you a link to before joining this session. So that simple breathing technique will be able to help you to kind of clean up that stress and to avoid that stress hormone that is running in the body. So I'd like to give you a little bit of background of how I was not aware that I was running on this stress hormone for most of my life. So as I mentioned, having a career in the cardiac department, my job was very simple if you heard about it, but actually doing it, had a lot of impact on the physical body as well as the stress response. So my job was to observe firstly, and anything could change within a second. And then I would have to, get to the patient as quick as I could. The adrenaline will be running to resuscitate a patient. So I didn't realize that I would be living in that state of stress all of my career. And it's not only the medical environment, you take firefighters, policemen, or just a normal person who would react in a way to stress because they perceive a threat. And going through this and just working on adrenaline, you find that you can't sleep at night because you're such a busy body, because that adrenaline is running within the body. And you'd find yourself eating at odd hours, trying to soothe yourself down so that you can fall asleep. So that is one of the effects of having stress hormone in our body and not even knowing about it. And that is why the consultants say that it is a silent killer. And when we just do simple techniques like this, we are able to take charge of that stress hormone, and we are able to avoid that stress hormone from being released in our physical bodies. And we know that when we are in this constant state of stress, we really are not ourselves. And I'll speak about that in a minute. And when we're not ourselves, we are reacting or responding from a state of threat. And that's not really healthy to be at the receiving end or to be the person expressing themselves in that way. So moving on, so this is just that little image about the hungry lion and facing your boss. It's just the same kind of stress hormone that would be released because your brain centers don't really know what is what. Coming back to the effects of stress. So the physiological parts of stress, as I was saying, is that we can end up not being ourselves when we are in this constant state of stress. And we can have high emotions during this time. So I'm going to speak to all of this, and just to let you know that if you are identifying with some of these effects, then it's okay, because I'm going to present to you solutions, and it's something that you can start to change within yourself. So those physiological responses are, if we're in a constant state of stress, sometimes our bodies can only do so much, and we can end up with this adrenal fatigue, and we're constantly tired because our body is something where we would need to fight or to run. And if we're in that the whole day and the whole night, then, we're just not in a state where our bodies are simply calmed and rested and relaxed. And the importance of the relaxation and the calmness and avoiding this stress hormone is that we're not living from who we are. Instead, we're living from the stress hormone. And speaking to the responses and the reactions, you'll find that if you are living in this kind of state, you're somebody that's perhaps more angry than others. And this is something that, we're all allowed to feel these emotions. But if this is a constant state of being, then one would want to heal that and to let go of that, because the opposite side of stress is this peace. And when we are in peace, we have that inner peace, then we are totally and completely ourselves, and we are open to receiving anything and everything that we're worthy of. However, if we masked by these emotions that's really not serving us, then we're going to be in a constant state of busyness, doing, and not really serving ourselves or the people we love that's around us. So that's something to think about and contemplate if you are identifying with these effects. The mental effect of stress can lead to all sorts: apathy, depression, and so much of thought in the mind. Now, maybe we have been okay with a busy mind, but when we meditate or when we experience stillness, and when we do that for ourselves, we can know the difference between a busy mind and a mind that is peaceful and quiet. And this is something that we can achieve by simple breathing, meditation, and all the things that I will discuss with you a little later. So it's actually the next effect is the impact on productivity. Now, as I said, it all comes back to us. And if we're not in our fullest potential, or we're not of an energy that is serving us, and we're creating toxicity within, then it is going to impact every aspect of our lives. And one of it being productivity. So we can be aware of this. And if you have deadlines that you can't complete, you have things that we needed to be done last year or last month or yesterday, and it's just too much for you in order to complete, then I would invite you to be able to use the tools and techniques which I will be sharing, so that you can bring in more structure and organization into your life. Because if we have a busy mind and our emotions are all over the place, and we are presenting with a high heart rate or high blood pressure, that's just some of the physiological effects. We'll go into more detail because this is just an introduction. So if we have all of this that we're feeling, and it's definitely going to impact our relationships, because we're not coming from a place of peace, authenticity, and an energy that's vibrating at a high frequency. Because stress is definitely not a high frequency. And if it's creating this toxicity, then we definitely want to be vibrating on that high frequency, so that we can let go of these things and be able to produce structure into our lives, so that we can start eliminating and really being assertive and aware of who, what, and where, how the stress is presenting in our lives. So that's just a few aspects on the effects of stress. And I could go on this topic, so I'm just watching my time as well, and know that you can reach out at any time. So, identify. Now, some of us are capable of taking responsibility, and some, they would be this blame on others, on people, things, or situations. And if we identify where the stress is coming from and what is making us stress, how is the stress affecting our lives, then we are able to change and get a different result. And this is when know thyself comes in. And at the Modern Mystery School, we learn about ourselves, because nobody is going to tell us about ourselves. It's something that we need to know. And if we don't, then we're just going to be going through life thinking that it's not me, it's them, or we're going to have the attitude that other people need to change and not us. And when we do know ourselves, we take responsibility. We like the things about ourselves, and sometimes we may not like things about ourselves. However, you will have the tools to be able to change that so that you can be the best version. And the importance of knowing yourself as well is simply the connection you have with yourself. Because if you are connected to yourself and you are able to identify and be more aware of the stress and the impacts in your life, you are able to progress much faster. So you would be able to achieve this part of eliminating stress from your life a lot quicker. So we might have been affected by stress all of our lives, maybe just some of our lives. And if we don't really work through our traumas, our emotions, and our busy minds, then we are going to perhaps create something within our physical body that's going to tell us, hey, wait a minute, you need to stop. You need to stop and look after yourself. And that comes up in everybody's life, because we do have this physical body, and that awareness and connection to the physical body is so important. So talking a little bit more about health is that we really need to identify and be aware so we can avoid being sick or bringing upon disease within ourselves. And when we are vibrating at a high frequency, we're truly eliminating and progressing and letting go of all these low frequencies that don't really serve us. And we're also working on our subconscious mind as well. So knowing ourselves is really, really important in terms of working out how we're going to reduce and eliminate stress in our lives. the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is I've been mentioning these tools and techniques. And I use these tools and techniques daily, sometimes more than that. Because if we don't have the tools and techniques that's helping us solve the problem, then we're forever going to be dependent on something or someone else to solve our problems. And when we are dependent on something or someone else, then that empowerment is not within. We're seeking it outside of us. And now that we know and we identify, then we need to do something about it. Because when we do something about it, we transform, we heal, and we shift focus. The importance of stress rescue is that we shift focus from whatever is causing us stress to a particular goal in our lives or something that brings us so much joy that all our energy that is being drained by this stress or the root cause of the stress is going to be used in shifting focus into something that's bigger, better, and more expansive to ourselves. And when we shift focus, we are really vibrating at a frequency that is going to serve us on a physiological aspect, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of these aspects, because one affects the other and they're all connected. So when we vibrate at a higher frequency and we shift focus and we bring in more joy and more creativity into our lives, then we can truly transform. So everything works together, and we can be eating so healthily and exercising, and that's just one aspect of our lives. But if we have a busy mind or we're very emotional, then we're definitely going to be imbalanced. And that imbalance can also have a major impact with stress in our lives. So if we don't work on our inner world, our outer world is really going to be, we're going to project that and we're going to attract that. Until we can see, then we would have an opportunity to do something about it. And when we do something about it, then we are a step closer to eliminating the stress in our lives. And we have control of what we can be in control of. And that is our emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being, which is most important in these times. So, speaking more about these tools and techniques that you can use, you might think that this is too good to be true. However, I would love to share them with you. And as I said, these tools and techniques come from the Modern Mystery School. So they are designed to progress you, and they are designed to shift your negative thinking. Now, this is really important because, there's so much that we can do for ourselves. And as I said, we can be stressed with not having time. But these tools and techniques just take 5 to 7 minutes. And if we can shift our negative thinking, then guess what? We are vibrating at a higher frequency. And when we are, then we are working hand in hand with everything that is connected in our lives, in each aspect of our lives. So the next thing is releasing your emotions in a healthy way. Now, when I mentioned about the effects of stress, I spoke a lot about anger, but there's so many other emotions, and it can be grief, losing a loved one, sadness, a pattern or cycle that we constantly drawn to in our lives that bring about these emotions. So a simple technique like releasing your emotions in a healthy way is going to help you on a daily a level of your well-being. And I don't know about you, but these seem to be tools that you can use on a daily basis. Because I had negative thinking almost every, 2 to 3 seconds. Oh, I had emotions, as I said, I was walking around with adrenaline all the time. So these are tools that you don't put away, in a file and bring about when it's a really important occasion, but you would use it every day. And you would also receive tools to create your reality. Because if you are balanced and you are using these tools to strengthen your energy structure, as well as your mental, your emotional, your physical body, then you have every right to create your reality. Because as I said, this is working on a level of energy and the DNA. So when we are responsible for ourselves, we're also given the opportunity to create our realities. And when we create our realities, we have no limits and we are living our fullest potential. So, another tool would be to protect your energy. And this is so important because if you are serving others and coming into contact with people every day, then you want to be able to protect your energy. Because we do have an aura, which is just outside our physical body. And if we do have tears in this aura that can be caused by stress or traumas, then we could have this energy leakage. And we could be more susceptible to feeling other people's energies. So this was a great tool for me working in a medical environment, working with people that had come with so much fear, and this was something that really helped me because I was super sensitive to energy. And when we are running in this adrenaline and the stress release that's happening, our senses become more and uh, more, sorry, can't find the word, more and more um, stronger, more and more stronger. And when this happens, we really do need to protect ourselves. So that's one thing. And then connecting with our higher self. This is super important because if are dependent on going to other people and asking them for advice, then we're not really empowering ourselves. And when we do empower ourselves, we need to connect to our higher self. And our higher self is some divine self within us, and higher self, which is something that we believe in ourselves that can guide us and can show us the way, and we can seek all that we're looking for internally, externally, to be able to help us to be able to connect and move in a direction that is going to be favorable and serving us and other people. And the other tool is to come back home to balance. Because if we're on a middle pillar and we're totally in balance, then we would be more stronger. And when we are stronger within our world, then we can't let anything come into our energy structure or our mind or our emotions and put us off balance. So it is, everything works together, as you can see. The choice is yours, and I would be happy to guide you through and work with you. And this is also another concept of the Modern Mystery School that I embody as well. And sometimes we can forget in the moment of stress that we do have choice and we do have free will. And if it is your time to start changing so that you can bring about a different result, then why not? So reach out. I am happy to help you and we can take this further. Thank you for listening. I'm just going to open the room for more questions. Are there any questions? You can type it on the chat and I would very happily answer. So how do you change your reality? A tip. So I have taken you through a few steps of being aware, and then you would have to do something different to create a different result. But with the tools and techniques that I do offer you, you would be able to change your reality because you would be strong, standing in your power to have the ability to change it. And somehow we might have forgotten that it's our own birthright to be able to change our reality. So I could definitely guide you with some tools and techniques, little techniques such as meditation, vision boards, and all the energetic tools, because there is a path of progression within the school as well. And when you do work with me, I would be able to share all of that with you. Any other questions? Okay, so how does one start their process of inner work with the Modern Mystery School? That's a great question. So you can get in touch with me and I will put you in touch with a practitioner. We have practitioners all around the world, and depending on what country you're in, um, I could put you in touch. So another one was I spoke about the negative aspects of stress. There is also a positive aspect of stress. If you have a balance, is this a problem? Uh, the positive aspect that I can identify with is if you are faced with a threat that you'd have to fight for your life or run for your life, I see that the only positive aspect of stress. So if you're not fighting or running for your life, then there's actually no positive, effect of stress. And if you want to clarify a little bit more, that would be great because when we are in balance, we really don't need the positive aspect of stress, only unless we need to fight for our lives or run. And, our lives are being perceived by threat. Any other questions? I have a minute left. Okay, brilliant. Thank you all for joining. It has been amazing being with you and being able to share this with you. And I hope that you're able to bring in some awareness and identify with all your stresses so you can start changing things and be able to live your life fully and be able to remember that joy that you always were and always are. Take care, and you're welcome to stay in touch with me. All the best.